The Minecraft build limit, capped at 255 for almost 9 years now. It is often asked and discussed within the Minecraft community if it will ever get higher. And the devs haven't ignored the discussion either. In fact, they have been testing it and playing with it for over 9 years as well. But alas, here we are in 2021 and the build limit is still by default at 255 in the newest version of Minecraft 1.16. But that being said, recently in some of Minecraft's 1.17 snapshots, this build cap changed for the first time in 9 years. But the changes are still in snapshot versions and haven't been completed or optimized. So what's going on here? Is Minecraft's build limit going to increase? Or is this going to be a similar story to the Giants, whereby an old feature was changed multiple times in a snapshot only to have all its changes reverted not long after? Today we're going to talk about the changes to Minecraft's build limits and what it could mean for the game. Is it going to increase? Will we finally be able to build below bedrock and Y level 0? Well, let's get right into it. Alright, so in order to properly discuss the build limit, we need to talk about its history. And to do that, as usual, we need to go back to when Minecraft was young. We need to go all the way back to 2009, to Minecraft's earliest versions. Back in Minecraft Classic, the build limit was set to 64, but the terrain was just a flat square that was 43 blocks tall, meaning you could only build 21 blocks into the air if you started on the same Y level you spawned on. And even in later classic versions where unique terrain generation was added with differing heights and elements rather than just a flat world, it still did not increase. Strangely enough, in some of these early classic versions there was lava at the bottom Y level rather than bedrock. Through in-depth versions where the game actually became survival, it still remained at 64, and it wasn't until Minecraft InfDev that this was changed. Minecraft InfDev version 201.00227-1, released on February the 27th, 2010, was the first Minecraft InfDev version, the famous update where Minecraft worlds will now generate infinitely, or to what's known as the 32-bit integer limit, which is 33,554,432. In order to further support infinite world generation, the build limit was finally increased to 127. This increased build limit was also added as terrain would often generate up to Y level 100, and having the 63 build limit cap severely limited the space for mountainous terrain and deep cave generation. Anyways, the build limit would remain at 127 going to Minecraft Alpha and Beta, but with the game's ever-growing popularity, players began pushing these limits, often building sky-high structures or bases. This led players to begin discussing and trying to push Notch to increase the build limit, and on the Minecraft forums it became a commonplace topic. And he did listen, tweeting on July the 19th, 2011, an image of him playing with the higher Y levels. In this picture he states that the level generator is not exactly tweaked for 512 height, showcasing a weird mountain which obviously did not generate properly. But even though it didn't work out, it was a good sign that Notch did have ideas to increase it, or at least wanted to see what it was like. So, he had interest in it seems. Now, the build limit would remain at 127 into late 2011 with Minecraft's full release, and with the terrain generation changing in Beta 1.8, just one version prior, many players were expecting or wanted to see the build limit increase as well. And fortunately, their wishes were granted, because on March the 1st, 2012, with Minecraft version 1.2.1, the height limit was doubled from 127 to 255. However, even though it was doubled, no structures or terrain generated above this Y level yet, so only players could build that high. This change in height was done alongside the change in region file format, likely properly supporting the higher build limit. But still, as I mentioned, terrain and structures did not utilize the full 255 block build height, as terrain generation was not changed with the build height increase, only the region file format was changed. And players were curious if this would ever be changed, asking Dinnerbone on Reddit, who responded by saying it's intentionally designed to only go as high as it does right now, maybe in the future or with different generators and options, but right now we're happy with the extra breathing room for players. That being said, amplified terrain was introduced on October the 25th, 2013 in Java Edition 1.7.2, and this was the first time a terrain generation engine attempted to use the full 255 block build height. But before we get into that, consider subscribing if you haven't already. Many of you watch my videos still aren't subscribed. No pressure though. Anyways, amplified terrain was only its own world type, so you either had to go all in with the massive terrain or stick to normal vanilla. You see, at the time, the biome which contained the tallest terrain was mountains, and they generally peaked at around Y level 110, rarely going above Y level 120. And with the addition of amplified terrain in 1.7.2, a new biome was also added to standard worlds, which would later become known as a shattered savanna, a rarer variant of the savanna biome, which basically had amplified terrain, with most mountains exceeding 200 blocks tall, often reaching the height limit. Now this was really cool, but unfortunately it was quite rare. It would only occur as a savanna, so there wasn't much variation here. But if anything, it gave players a breath of fresh air from the standard and mostly boring terrain generation. And for the most part, that was it. Since Java Edition 1.7.2 released in October of 2013, we haven't had any new additions to terrain generation that can reach extreme heights, and nothing too much has been said or done with the build limit. In April of 2016, a Minecraft developer named TheMisterEpic posted this, hinting at a higher build limit, but for the most part, that was all players got. For the past 8 years, it still remained at level 255, with terrain generation never really being properly updated to suit it, besides amplified. This has led to the community getting really bored over the terrain, often comparing it to alpha and beta terrain, which really displays how it's gotten more boring and flat over time. The 255 build height really became a limiting factor for not only terrain generation, but also was a limiting factor in player creativity. As the game has continued to evolve, players have gotten better and better at building, and projects have become larger and more ambitious. Players would begin complaining that they couldn't build as high as they would have liked, and people recreating cities or other real-life monuments were severely limited. You have to remember that sea level is at Y level 63, so you don't really have the full 255 blocks to build with. You only have around 190 unless you want to destroy all the terrain below you. Anyways, players asked for years for the build height to be increased, so some of the modding community stepped in. Now, there have been a few mods created within the past few years that have unlocked the build limit for players, but I'm just going to briefly talk about one, which is still being updated and is the most popular and optimized version. The Cubic Chunks mod, created by Bartex2x in early 2017, is a successor to two different mods: Robinton's Cubic Chunks, the first mod to ever increase the build limit back in 2011, and Kuzak's Tall Worlds mod. And I'll tell you what, I was skeptical to see how well the mod would work at first, but after trying it myself, I can say it worked very well, allowing you to build infinitely high and also generating stone below Y level 0, letting you also build infinitely below bedrock. However, while the mod is cool and all, it breaks when used with many other mods due to a vast array of compatibility issues. Also, the newest version of the mod is only available for 1.12.2, a Minecraft version which is over 3 years old now. So most players still don't have access to the mod due to version differences, and as such it is rather niche. The Cubic Chunks mod did not solve the problem of Minecraft's build limit, unfortunately, but it did prove that there is much possibility for a version of Minecraft with an increased build limit. Then, in mid-2020, something interesting happened. Minecraft 1.17 was announced, the Caves and Cliffs update, which is going to massively overhaul cave generation. In the footage we were shown, you could see that caves were substantially larger, containing massive openings, large bodies of water, and more. Players analyzed this limited footage carefully, and there are a few interesting things they noticed. First of all, they noticed that some redstone ore showed in the videos was placed quite high up in comparison to the cave. Redstone normally generates below Y level 16, and as you can see in this image, there is a lot of blocks below the redstone, likely more than 16. Does this mean they made redstone generate higher? Or does it mean they made terrain generate even lower? Not only that, but the caves also had lava which generated higher than normal, and one clip showed a player going really far down. Normally bedrock to ground level is roughly 63 blocks, so fitting these massive caves into such a small area would seem really difficult. Also, in the 1.17 update, new mountain generation was announced. Now, we didn't get that much information apart from a single screenshot, which, if you look at closely, may notice that you can see two clouds. Now, clouds are normally found at Y level 128, and current Minecraft mountains are normally below the clouds or just reach them, but that's rare. The fact that these two clouds are dwarfed by the new mountains means that the new mountains could potentially be upwards of Y level 200, also hinting at the fact that the high limit could be increasing. And this would make sense as mountains hardly feel as such when compared to amplified terrain. Since 1.17 is the update which is going to change some things which have not only been highly requested for years, such as caves, but also features which have been untouched for over 10 years, it isn't unlikely to think that the build limit would increase. And it's become even more likely as of late. On December the 2nd last year, the fourth 1.17 snapshot 20W49A was released. This snapshot made it so that the height limit of Minecraft worlds can now be increased in the custom world settings. Currently, it can be increased up to Y level 512 and can also go all the way down to Y level -256. Now, I just need to clarify that this is not set by default. You need to edit the custom settings or utilize a data pack which does it for you. If you just generate a normal world in this snapshot, it will still have a build limit of 255. So it hasn't entirely been implemented into the game. Well, not just yet, at least, and I'm using a data pack to make this work for me. But the fact that Mojang have allowed this to happen is really good news, as it points more in the direction that the build height will increase in the full release of 1.17. What's even more interesting is the fact that you can now go below Y level 0. Does this mean bedrock will be getting removed or changed? Or does this mean that caves and whatnot are going to begin generating and going down into the negatives? It's all speculative at the moment, but if I had to guess, then I would say in the future 1.17 updates, the sea level or ground level will increase, and the underground will begin generating around Y level 120, if if not more. This would give plenty of room for fully fleshed out and detailed underground caves, while still providing plenty of room to expand upwards above ground. What's also interesting is that the Minecraft wiki says that because of an error, the build limit can only be increased up to 512 and down to negative 256. Does this mean that we could potentially be getting an even greater build height, maybe upwards of 1000? It's all very exciting stuff. I asked some of you guys on Twitter what you would do if the height limit would increase. One of the coolest suggestions I got was from Vev, who would build a really tall dropper map. Follow me on Twitter if you want to be featured in a video in the future, link in the description. Imagine how cool that would be, a dropper map which begins at Y level 511 and finishes at negative 255, an over 700 block tall drop. And not only that, but if amplified terrain is made to fully utilize the increased build height, it will look even more breathtaking and crazy than it already does. For all we know, the new mountains being added may dwarf even the biggest mountains we can find in current Minecraft today. Increasing the build limit is just so exciting because of the amount of increased potential it gives players. Now, originally this video was going to end around here, but then just 2 days ago, after I'd already finished the script and started editing this video, another new Minecraft snapshot, 21W06A, was released, substantially changing world gen. Caves were now made to generate below Y level 0 all the way to Y level negative 64, and the build height was increased from 256 to 320, an addition of 64 blocks. So basically we got an additional 64 blocks to build below Y level 0 and 64 blocks to build above Y level 256. This is great news, and the fact that this is happening basically cements the fact that the build height will increase in 1.17. As of the current snapshot, the terrain still does not generate above Y level 255 however. That feature has not yet been implemented, but it should be only a matter of time before we finally get the super tall mountains and unique terrain we so desperately want. I am slightly disappointed they didn't go higher and increase it to 512, but hey, maybe in a later snapshot they will. And what can I say, the caves in this snapshot are absolutely mind-blowing. They look so decked out and so detailed that I can't even wait to go explore them. And just remember that the caves aren't even close to done yet. They still haven't had their biomes added to them, lava still doesn't generate properly, and ore placement is not currently complete. So there is still so much more work to be done, but they are already looking absolutely astonishing. However, I am worried for one small reason. You see, I covered the story of the Giants about a month back, and looking through their many changes each update. For the longest time they were mostly untouched and couldn't spawn naturally in the game, then for some reason in a 1.14 snapshot in 2019, they were given an array of new changes making them functional, only for all these changes to be reverted in a snapshot not long after. And this isn't the first time something similar has happened. Minecraft Snapshot 18W06A removed the cool feature of the game called Customized World Types, which allowed you to change how the terrain would generate. There are a lot of cool things you could do here, including changing the sea level, changing whether or not caves generated, and more. This feature was really cool, and was appreciated by a significant number of people in the community, so the fact that it was removed left a foul taste in some players' mouths, with many taking to the forums and Reddit to complain and try to get it re-added back. But hey, that's extremely unlikely to happen with the build limit changes, especially with the fact that the next snapshot already increased the default build limits, so I wouldn't be too worried honestly. Anyways, I think that about wraps it up for today. Things are looking very promising, but I'm curious if you guys think so as well. So be sure to leave a comment and let me know, as well as subscribe while you're down there. Follow me on Twitter and join my Discord, links are in the description. Thank you all so much for watching.